the organizers, but I said I offer you an alternative, and that is that I'll get some material myself and find a supervisor. So we will commit, and all of that. But I'm giving a bit of material, and I'll ask Dr. Ramzy to supervise me. Is that all right? And so I'm going to give a bit of material from a child case, and it can't be helped that this child, who was 2.5, is now no longer 2.5. In fact, she's 6 and 7. And so therefore we can now look back on the future. And so we've got some advantage over you now. But I'm going to ask Dr. Ramzy now to take over and tell me about it too. And I'm very excited about it.
Well, I don't think that you are aimed or let down. One the truth that will be handsomely rewarded for this change of events. I was hoping to look forward after very many years of leading my alma mater in the literal sense, to come back and sit amongst you and learn something about religion, especially in the era now when we are trying to learn something about it. And I contacted the three Congress organizers and asked to be in, because I'm also a member of the British Psycho-Analytical Association, named it. But since I consider the political son has been away for a long time. But just before I was planning to come over to the States, I got this from Dr. Winnicott, just for a case, said, I have some news for you. You don't know it, but on the 22nd of July, 2:30 p.m., you are going to provide me in front of all the three Congress cities. So I read the thing again and went on. So I have asked permission to provide the second thing. And I'm asking you to do this. I shall give a child analysis hour, and you may find it a bit more for analysis, but this would be for discussion. I look forward to this experience with that. When we meet, I can let you know anything more you want to know, if this is needed. So I answered them. I won't go into the details of my response and reaction. I just said in my acknowledgement, the matter as a third, filled me with awe and timidity, but neither can submerge in excitement over an fantastic idea of role reversal as you are suggesting. Even lifted up my spirit and talked about a renewed wish for rejuvenating adventures. I can just plan on it if you want. And being pride aside, I shall do my best to play my marginal role in as smoothly a way as I can. One thing I'm sure of, the audience will get their money's worth from your role. As for mine, it will be a good day if I get away without too many wounds. The lucky one might perform successfully. I have had no advanced candidate as our president one. So I play my role and the need of help I may step into it outside sometimes. So we have the advanced verification.
So now we've now come down to me bringing very ordinary material, nothing special, and all the collections So, did you hear and interrupt and discuss and if I just not say, about this child's grandmothers and everything like that, we all got connected. I just say one, and the first thing, therefore, I want to get through the first one, which was a consultation, really. I start off exactly the same as with going to the treatment. Only I didn't know what would happen because this child lived 50 or 70 miles from London. So we didn't know quite what would be happening. And gradually, let me just say the very ordinary things that go on here. So here we have a child of 2 years and 2 years and 6 months. It was a month since the parents contacted me with a letter. Here we are. I'm in my consulting room. It is not very suitable for my present consulting room. It's got 2 parts to it, with curtains in the middle which can draw on and draw apart, and they're usually partially drawn. And in the back shelves, there are quite a lot of, as a muddle of toys. Now this is not an orthodox. This is not how I usually do child analysis. Lately, in the street in my own house, I had this rearrangement differently there. And there's a muddle of toys underneath and they are a muddle. Most of them have been in use since 1931, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, and they are pretty awful. And the only thing that people is the children don't need a mind. But it alters the quality of work the way things go because there's no draw for each child, like that, and so on. Now, let me shall I say that just describe what how the thing began off, and then you have to interrupt me. I'm giving wisdom there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we've taken together 10 minutes to start. It does help anybody has to come in. Well, this little girl had a name at that time. She's called the Piggle. And you can have what views you like on that point. But a little later, there came a moment when she suddenly wanted to be called by her own name. And it was a significant moment because she just was beginning to regain her own identity at that point. And it was important to recognize it. But at this time, she was called the Piggle. For me, this indicates a rather clean kind of mother. A cleaned up mess, really. Her other word for a mess is a moosburg. That means a cow's feces. Terrible learning all these new languages every time you have a child, isn't it? So the parents came together. This is the only time the mother came. And we were all together for a bit. And then I should tell you that there's a little sister called the Shash baby. Because she's very called Shash, yeah. And she was 8 months old. So that the child The Piggle was therefore 21 months old when Shakespeare was born. And that's the point where she changed her personality into Piggle. So then I just started up something and didn't know what to do. And I took them all to the waiting room. She looked, the Piggle looked very serious, and it was quite obvious, as a matter of fact, at the door, that she'd come for work. She came first into the door and looked around and went to say, oh, this is where it comes in from. So you may need to know that how they introduced the idea of music. So then I said, sort of indicated that she should come back into the room with me. And she started to make the journey along the passage. And she said, I'm shy. I'm too shy. So, I don't know what the rules are really. They haven't been written yet. I think we would all do different things on different days, according to the weather and what we feel like and so on. I got the mother in with her then, and told the mother not to shut the door. I didn't have to explain it much, because they had anything else. She sat down on the couch, and the Piggle beside her. So now they were hidden from me because I went over and sat down where the toys are underneath the bookcase with the curtain half drawn. But I could just see the teddy bear, which she sat up in a position on the desk. And you can imagine there's a desk and then there's a long room. They were over here. There was a desk and there was a teddy bear sitting on the floor that was leaning up against the desk. And actually the first thing I'd done when she came in like this, it's common, I don't know, you often do that. If a child comes to me with a teddy bear or something like that, I look at the teddy bear, I don't look at the child. So I've already made a contact with the teddy bear as it happened. And so we sat there, mother and child on the couch, the curtain and me on the floor there. And I wondered if anything would happen at all. You see, I suppose I could have made some interpretation here which would make the child come to me and, and say hello. But I don't know how to do that sort of thing at all. And I'm not good at it, and I don't do it. I should have said, you want to catch hold of your mother because you're afraid that if you come here you'll find something worse. But I didn't know quite. I thought, I was thinking, never leave a holiday without the fear of finding something worse. So, I don't know what you think of this, but what I said was, I said from the behind the curtain there, I would like to show the teddy my toys. So she went straight over to Teddy and brought him along and sat him down amongst the toys. And I showed the Teddy the toys. So then she sat down on the floor too. It was quite a few times before I was sitting on a chair. We were all in, you'll understand that. It's very intense. Everything's terribly intense. Really ill. A child who's a very well child who's become ill. Everything means everything. So she showed me the toys. We showed each other the toys. And she took his mother on the couch on the other side. And she took the parts out of the muddle of trains, and she said, I've got to, whatever it was, I've got to, and after about 5 minutes of this, the mother slipped out and went to the waiting room with her husband. And the Piggle was interested in this and tested the door arrangements and made sure it wasn't quite shut, but it was nearly shut, and the deal done, and so then we were there, and she agreed to get back in, and she's there, and we're all set. So that now we settled into the beginning of treatment, or consultation, it was. But it's makes a difference from my point of view, because there isn't any difference as far as I know. Yeah.
This is the beginning of the official treatment.
Yes, well, no, it turned out to be the beginning of the treatment, but I didn't know it was now. But I never make any difference anyway, because if I see a child once, I always treat it exactly as if it was the beginning of an analysis. And if you're going to finish the analysis in an hour, well, then it has to be continued in another hour, or a few more hours, or referred to something. I don't believe there's such a thing as a consultation with a child or a grown-up that gets anywhere at all that isn't the beginning of a treatment. I think this was something carried over from the wartime. You know, what we used to call the catch-up boys. All these people like Tommy Wilson and everybody, I suppose it's been said that many other people that you can't make a diagnostic without doing a therapy. So, I don't know. Right. She's saying, I've got a train, I've got a, and here's another one, and here's another one. And that was going on like this until I thought that she's communicating something. And then, right go along, I used the information I had, which was that she was a rather particularly normal child till 21 months old when her sister was born. And this had a very traumatic effect on her. She soon became quite fond of the baby, and they had quite a good relationship. That she was disturbed and became an ill person from that time. And that was what worried the parents, unfortunately. So I allowed myself to be influenced by information from outside the analysis. And I said something. So naturally what I said was, another baby. And I said the shash baby, because I knew the two words. The parents, when we were talking together, I knew it. So that I'd already made an interpretation. Is that interpretation? Or not?
What can we work with?
Yeah, I got to know what these two. It doesn't always matter an interpretation or not. It's a comment.
You know what you knew about why this was a sick child, how she was a sick child.
Yes, no, it is not fair. All right. This child had been rather particularly, the whole development, this first child was rather sturdy and strong, and she had a strong personality, and things went well. In the first, right from the beginning, she was very much father-orientated as soon as she could see that he was taken from mother. And her first word was, one of the first things she really did very clearly was to start calling him Daddy at 6 months. So that's quite early orientation to his father. And then the baby was born, and it seems that the pregnancy was not the disturbing feature, that's in the clinical sense. But when the baby was born, at 21 months, the child became changed altogether. In many respects, she became gradually, instead of being very short-footed, and all that sort of thing. She became badly coordinated. And now would fall about. And she changed from being father-oriented to being mother-oriented. And she began to want regressive experiences. And the thing culminated in her becoming unable to be herself at all, hence the accent on Piggle. Because she would not allow anybody to call her Gabrielle, which is her name. She was either the mother or the baby. And so she lost her identity. And this was a very striking change in this case. That was the kind of trouble that they brought up. But some of that I didn't know until at the end of this consultation I saw the mother, and I knew a little bit from literature. So, do you think it's possible that when, like in the acute illness of this child, at the beginning, we get a rather structured hour, which you don't find later on, when she's found her identity. There are long, drabbled out bits which I can't give you, taking half an hour with nothing happening, and who knows what is happening. But at the beginning, it seemed to me that she brought a communication.
I'm afraid you haven't.
I haven't.
You haven't answered the question. Because there is more to the pathology, more to the symptomatology as it comes, as forms itself, it seems. You went to the core of the matter as the problem of identity. They were troubled about fears and sleeplessness and
yes, there were
frightening ideas.
There were two other things which were very striking, and one was just a minute. She had a. Well, if I start on that, we shan't get to the analysis. She had a black mummy and daddy. And the black mummy comes in at night and says, "Where are my yams?" And that means breasts. I don't know whether you know that. And she would point to her breasts, calling them yams and pulling them to make them bigger. And the black mummy lives in her tummy and can be talked to on the telephone. And she's often ill and difficult to make well. And there were other fears, obsessions about a thing called a babakar. All about the babakar. In fact, I shall now go and say the introduction of me to the child was that the mother said, the mother and father didn't know what to do, and they played about with trying to talk about all these things, and then eventually they decided they'd come to me. And so she was all the time, there was the word black was extremely evident, and it was everything inside, at least everything was black, and you don't know what, altogether why. And then she would say, the pigger, that's herself, Piggle, has gone away, gone to the babakar, the pigger is black, both piggers are bad. Mummy, cry about the babakar. And then Mummy had to cry about the babakar, she didn't know what a babakar is. Not right. And so she wrote to Dr. Winnicott. She said, I've written to Dr. Winnicott, that's the first time she heard my name, who understands about babakars and black mummies. This was my testimonial. So, that stopped her worrying in the night about babakars. Instead of that, she suddenly said, quite out of the blue, take me to Dr. Winnicott. So that's why when she came to the front door, she was looking around to see what was all about. And her comment when she went home after the first time was, he doesn't know anything about Baba. Should we read that from Mother then now.
It was only to get some idea
Yes,
of whether it was
I
just
was
the
expecting
reaction
you.
to the birth of the child.
Expecting you to say that. So that another point was that I didn't know for a long time that the mother managed to have a baby, the second baby, when Gabrielle was 21 months old. And she has now told me that she had her baby brother when she was 21 months old. It very much disturbed her life, you see. And that when she found that she was giving her child the same experience, she felt awful about it. And this affected the situation. And undoubtedly made it awfully likely that they came with a child who probably would have got well anyway. I don't know. For treatment. If people ask me, who do you help most? I always say, the ones who would have got well anyway. And I believe that's absolutely true. We spend an awful lot of our time working away at cases that are so ill that you hardly can think. And the ones we can help most are the ones very often that you put in them somehow. They may be very ill, but they would very likely have somehow been seen through somehow. Yeah. I don't seem to be getting anywhere, do I?
We're getting somewhere, but if you're going to read it all.
Right. All right, then this one, the point about this child was that when she was in this state, in fact all the way through, she always told me if I was right or wrong. I just had to look, and she was quite clear that this was the right thing for me to say at that moment, even if it was only a half-truth or something. So now she responded when I said, another one, I said, another baby. So then she responded in the terms of her illness. She said, I was a baby. I was in a cot. I was asleep. I just had the bottle. Well, she'd never had a bottle because she was on the breast. It was only the other baby that had the bottle. Her identification with the baby came out immediately, and she gave an account of herself as the baby to me. I thought she said something about licking, and I said, did you say you were licking? No, I wasn't. I think she was, though, because licking was and mouthing was very important often later. See, I didn't know. At the beginning, I didn't know she had exactly. I'd forgotten. I couldn't remember exactly who had the breast and who hadn't at this stage. I was trying to learn about it. And then there was another lady. Then she took a toy and she said, where did this come from? So I said, well, it used to be the axle of a car, and one of the wheels has come off and so on, and that's why it's like that. And you're saying, where did the baby come from? Technically, I mean, there are some people who like to say, you know, somebody says, where did this come from? You say, you're asking me where a baby came from. And I find this is something antipathetic to me, and we have to divide ourselves into two kinds of people often. If somebody asks me what this is, I tell them. They say, why are you late? I say, because I tripped up coming on the road and fell over and something like that. You know, I mean, whatever the truth was. And then I'm quite willing to take that fact and talk about it as communication. Literally. If nobody minds, that's what I did.
Well, some people wouldn't mind. This is the first hour.
First hour. Yes, well, I wanted, then she was beginning to find out what I was like, and she found out as the sort of person who answers questions and then uses it as communication if I feel there is communication in it. So I said, and you wonder where the babies come from. And she said, the cot. Now, in 1935, I had a time starting up analysis. I remember very clearly, whenever anybody mentioned the cot, I always thought they meant Winnicott. And for some years, I found everybody doing this. And of course, the people played into it, grown-ups and children and everybody and so on. And one day, suddenly occurred to me, I wonder whether this is right or not. So I stopped it. And since then, I've never had it. You know, because the first thing you think of is cot, actually. But it was me who was so sensitive about having cots in my name. So she said babies come from a cot. But what she did was to take a little car, about so big, from Woolworths, and she took the axle with the wheel on one side, and she started shoving that thing into the window of the car like this. So, she said, it's too big, it won't go in. It's stuck. Then she took a smaller stick and pushed it in, and the stick, she said, stick goes in. So I said something here about a man putting something into a woman to make a baby. She said, I've got a cat. Next time, I'll bring the pussycat another day. So suddenly there was an easing of the situation. Do you think this? I know you've had some opportunity to read further on. Do you think in this that one could, I felt looking back over it, there was a danger here that I got caught up in a sort of forward movement to genitality. It had to be dealt with. But somehow or other, it was masking the pre-genital fantasy. One could have got caught up in a rushing forward into the genital fantasy, and so on. Because she was driven forward, I felt, by looking back on it,
Would there have been something in the child which you felt might have prepared her for such an early interpretation, whether the genital would be genital?
Yes, I think that this was an extremely free family. I think that anything she asked, unusually free family, and anything she asked about babies and so on, she had been told. Even they would have left out something, I'm sure.
Just to raise a question.
Yes.
When you say after you're wondering where the baby comes from, and she says the baby is one could also take it that she does not want to talk about where does the baby really come from.
Yes.
On the other hand, the fact that she then goes on and talks about something smaller going into something, one might also take as her envy of the baby who was small enough to be inside the mother where she isn't anymore. So you have a number of possible choices.
Yes.
I'm not saying what I would have said at all, but I think some people would say, if you say you're wondering where the baby comes from, and the child says the baby comes from the car, one might take that as the child saying, you and I both know different.
Yes, it would be possible to verbalize here and say, you say it comes from the cot, because you don't want to think of it coming from inside. And that would be in my mind. And I quite understand that Alan is saying it. And I don't have to be kind of understood what he said there. And I'm holding back all the time. And I might do it in another day. Depends on the weather. But yes. So, the theme develops, but it seems to me that in the material, the theme develops backwards. We start off with this very forward genitality.
and so on. So then immediately there's a bit of easing, and we're talking about pussycat. We're beginning to get on to being able to talk in symbolic language instead of directly looking at the sexual intercourse, I thought. But nevertheless, undoubtedly, anxiety is beginning to show itself. You want to see a mother and open the door. Of course, somebody would say,
what color was the cat? What color was the cat?
The cat. I could have asked her, couldn't I? But the color, you're thinking of the
It
color.
might have been black.
Black.
I wonder.
Yes. Might be. But you see, what I would have in my mind is that when she says I've got a pussycat, she's talking about her female gender.
Yes, I know.
But I don't want to get onto yes. And that's all right, yes. It could be a black cat, but it mightn't be. And I could flutter up. You'd agree that to ask, though, to say then what colour's the cat. I do some very stupid things in this thing, and some of them you can't really cookies on get as far as that. But the thing is that I feel that one can clutter up the material a bit trying to get to something. She'll tell me. I never felt for the case ever so much that all I had to do was to play my part just as it came, because she knew what she wanted. And I would say that each time she came to me, she knew what she wanted. But that's partly due to the method, which we may get down to of this case. But she knew what she wanted, and she came, and when she got it, she went. And I think that I would like to make the comment that it seemed to me that her material was more organized at the beginning when she was anxious, and then it gradually became as she was able to be more. And then at the end she came to see me just well. So, where are we getting to? Yes, now here's something I did, which is, I consider that it would have been awfully cluttering up to have said what colour's the cat. And I think you would agree with me there.
I didn't want this for my
but I did something here which I think is absolutely idiotic. I'm sorry that my right hand over here is schizophrenically writing notes. Put it in. You see, she wants to see her mother. Now there was an anxiety coming. I don't know why. I don't understand quite. I said, you feel frightened. Do you have frightening dreams? Because children, at a time, they love to tell their dreams in dream form, and it's so tremendously valuable to have their anxiety and their thing in dream form. And if they dreamt something, told you, then you know that their ego structure has coped with the material, and you can use it for interpretation. And but still, that was a bit out of my anxiety I said that, because I couldn't think why she had to go to her mother. And after all, we'd only met for 25 minutes, and I didn't know where I was yet. She said, when I said, do you have frightening dreams? She said, about the Babacar. And I'd been told that this somehow or other is connected with the baby, and nobody knows how. Baba, at any rate, in it, and she's got a Baba of her own, which is one of her dolls. And by this time she was taking the ribbon off a toy lamb. I had two little toy things about so big, little soft toys, the rest were all tiny toys. And she took the ribbon off the lamb's neck and put it round her own. So somehow or other there was some sort of identification with the material, and I felt a bit more secure in it all because of that. I don't know whether you can find any significance about that. Now this is the stupid thing. I said, what does the Babacar eat? Now why I said that, did you ever do stupid things? I really can't imagine, and put an exclamation mark in the margin. Naturally, she said, I don't know. And then she said, I've got a balloon, I've got a balloon. And she was all the time fiddling with an old degenerated balloon. A deflated, degenerated balloon, and every now and again she was sort of futile manipulation, and sometimes she would later on try and get me to blow it up. Now, in one discussion of this case that I had, I didn't get any further than this because there's an obvious symbolic meaning to this, which for some reason or other I didn't get at the time of what was going on. Anybody, I wonder how many, whether the symbolic meaning of that is very striking to people. I think it is to me now, but it wasn't at the time.
And because you didn't want to flatter yourself up with your thinking of the symbolic meaning and the function of that piece in the same hour.
Well, I would have liked to feel that I knew what this deflated balloon was, but I didn't say anything about it. So that, and what I have to say is that I couldn't come to grips with it. I thought, what's you fiddling around with that stupid thing for? And it's absolutely new. I just sort of felt, I was irritated with myself for not being able to make anything about it, and she didn't seem to want to bring it as a communication. She just was fiddling with this thing. But she said, I got a balloon.
Did she ever say anything, because you said that she tolerated the mother's pregnancy without any apparent trauma, but she must have noticed it.
Well, this is the point. I mean, I think there's no doubt whatever that she was, it was Betty Joseph who pointed out, you could get into discussion. She said, well, obviously, that's the mother's pregnancy ending. And I said, well, I think I'm going to give up psychoanalysis and take up gardening. I mean, it's so obvious. And the point is that it's correct. And I'm sure it's right. But as I look back, I can't help being glad I didn't see it at the time. That's not excusing myself. I don't know, I think so uncanny, because I think I would have missed something. You can see something.
I'd like to ask this question really related to the material. And it's a question which you haven't given us the material about yet, but I would like to ask about. Not other material, but rather about this. Namely, the impression which comes through from what you've said so far.
Yeah.
The impression that comes through from what you've said so far is that you're in a very big hurry with this girl. Whether you want to tell her on day one, or her family on day one, what it's all about, and that you can rescue her, I don't know. But you're in a very big hurry. Now, the question I have is, was your manner and style less hurried than your words? And that there really was a communication with her, in spite of your words. Your words weren't communicating with her very well. But were you communicating with her nonetheless? Let's say you, the pediatrician psychoanalyst, were functioning in spite of your urgency to fulfill a mission which you were not yet prepared to fulfill.
Yeah.
I think it was quite mentioned, don't know whether it was mentioned already. It seemed it was planned by a sort of a project of an analytic help on a limited time basis.
So it wasn't a hurry.
So if I can take it from that, and these people live far away, and also it is, as you mentioned earlier, is that it is not only the external frame of reference in which they have communication physical mind, but that this was a well-child up to a certain time. And she was not sold out to the illness too much. So she was, on the one hand, she was ready, and the plan was to help her in as much.
Let me be more specific with my question. Right. Whenever you approached her indirectly, you communicated very well. With Teddy like to see the toys, it's a very good communication.
Yes.
And then when you rush in with the things you've named, the communication is gone. But my question is, are there other things which were indirect, which were favorable, that set a good climate in spite of these things?
Yes, I want to answer slightly different from my supervisor. He's right about this, but the fact is that I'm glad that this has been brought up. I mean, I think I share the anxiety in here of somebody who doesn't really know what they're going to do. I mean, it might, at times it isn't hard. I really think that it does come out in it. And the difficulty is to get it written down in such a way that you reproduce it, because you tend to slow it down when you write it.
If I join in here, I think I give the proposal that my feeling I had that only the time to sum through what I think. That my feeling was this, was that what is urging, there was this rush felt in the first hour of the two.
Yes.
But up to the fourth or the fifth, there was an explanation of why it was justified. The kinetic situation and the fear about the child and the readiness for it. And so it went to the heart of the matter. Came out. So I said, well, I wouldn't lag my supervisee at this point because he would have found justification in the fourth hour, for example, to justify it.
I would differ with that too, though. I don't think it can be right. Circumstances don't change principles.
Yes, yes, all right.
I just like to raise a question about
This is about the same point, because we haven't finished with this yet, because I want to say what I want to say.
I questioned Dr. Calder's assumption that there was somehow a breakdown of communication. The child seemed to respond to the communication and was able to react to it, and I see no breakdown at all. So that here is an instance where principle is quite separate from the data that's being presented. I think we should wait and see what happens.
Yes.
But there's a fear, as Donald himself says, one thing worked progressively, like with the car, but then he wonders himself, why did he say to the child, do you dream? And what is the bar? So that I think there are always two different kinds of communication going on.
Yes, I fully agree with I fully agree. I put down here, I put an exclamation mark here, because I fully agree that I was anxious at this point that I was going to lose the case completely. And I don't mind losing a case, financially or failing or anything else. There's a child here asking for help, and I thought I was going to be a failure. And I started knocking around. And I don't believe any of us were free of this. We all do it sometimes. And so I'm not going to be ashamed of it. I'm going to say that I did. And but I want to say one other thing. I don't know that it was. I don't feel. Just before you said, I don't feel that I was rushing when I took up the points. Here's another, and here's another. I said another baby, and then where did it come from? And I said, and then she took that point up and did this thing in the end here. I don't feel I was rushing that at all. What I feel I was rushing was when I introduced things which showed that I was anxious. And I'm thoroughly ashamed of it.
Your topics. Your topics.
Yeah, my topic.
Your topic.
Yeah, that's right. And children, like grown-ups, can make use of us. They're really being quite bad analysts. Somehow they put up with it, somehow use it. But I consider we would, it's on the basis of that being bad. I do want to say this on the other side of the matter, which is that in this early material, the child was so urgent, she was so ill, if we had time, we shan't have time to get to 2 or 3 times on, where we're playing at the same things, and there's plenty of room. Here we're absolutely sitting amongst the toys we're there, and it's so urgent that it's absolutely in it. It's as if we're both sitting in a dream, in one of her dreams. And so when I go and say something silly, of course we're outside it immediately in this terrible way. And the urgency from the child accounts to some extent, I think, for my being anxious. But that really helped us nicely to be anxious. We all feel like supporting them.
Can we go to the second hour and compare if there was much urgency or rushing?
Let's see where we there's no trying to give an analysis in somebody a treatment, a whole treatment in one sitting. She left everything. Yes, she got me to take an old electric bulb, a yellowy electric bulb, and she said make a man's face on it. And I had to, with a mouth, and it was being sick. Draw a little man, yes. And then she, let's get on to the next one. But then she left everything completely put away and absolutely tidy, and she went out into the waiting room saying, I tidied it all up. This is one of her symptoms, is tidying everything and brushing everything under the carpet is the usual expression. She's the mother gave it as one of her symptoms, that she brushes everything under the carpet. Another thing, she denies then, when it got too difficult, she denies it, so then we went on. So, I try and get on to a little bit further on, if I can now. It's awfully difficult to know how to present material of a case, isn't it? But I just want to get now. So the father brought the child the rest of the time. I brought her into the room, and she took a train and she gave it a name. And she picked out the one new thing. There was one thing in it, in the whole mess of toys, which was new. And so she picked that out. And what's this? And there's another baby coming on. And then she said she came in a train. And the little trains that she was playing with there. And then she took the electric bulb with the yellow one with the face on it, which she got me to do last time, the face on it. Now she said, she said the first time, not last. She said, make it sick. So I had to put a mouth on the top for it to be sick with. Then she took a bucket of toys, emptied them out. And then she found something she didn't understand, said, what's this? And so on. There was, I want to get on a bit, because we've got limited time. And I want to say, what's this? I haven't got one of these. And she took a little truck and said, what's this? Do you know about the Gravação? I tried to get her to tell me something about that hour, which was also stupid. I mean, to say, I do very stupid things. And in this hour, I was anxious, undoubtedly, not knowing what to advise for the future and so on, and trying to get something. And I actually said, it's the mother's inside where the baby is born from. To my surprise, she looked rather relieved. She said, yes, the black inside. And then she took the bucket and deliberately overfilled it with toys, carrying on the theme of the sick man, the sick person. And I interpreted it all sorts of different ways, and you know, it wasn't any good one way and another. And the most popular interpretation was that it was a Winnicott tummy, not a black inside. So I was beginning to see the role I was beginning to play here. I mean, I don't want you to feel I understood it suddenly. It had to be taken very carefully, and I didn't understand what was going on really. But there was a Winnicott tummy, and I was being sick then. Out of greedy eating. So that's me and she talking together. This has to be a bit difficult just at the moment, because of course she's not doing it for our benefit. She's things are in a muddle. She doesn't know what she's doing and I don't know what I'm doing. And there was a lot about being sick, stage effects of sickness, which really I had already come off the fact it had to do with the end with mother's pregnancy and the pregnancy and a way of getting a small tummy after a big one and so on. I got onto that. For some reason or other, I didn't get onto it with the balloon, and I don't know why I didn't do that. So then I suddenly saw what I must say to her. I said, so Winnicott is the Piggle's baby. It's a very greedy baby because it loves the Piggle, its mother, so much. And it's eaten so much that it's sick. She's very pleased. The Piggle's baby is eaten too much. And that seemed to be settling that one. She said something about coming on the new train to London, and I said, the new thing is that it's about the Winnicott baby, and the Piggle mother, about Winnicott loving the Piggle mother and eating the Piggle and being sick. So she said, yes, you do. And we got a feeling then that the work of the session could have been over at that point. She could have gone over that point. She'd got what she wanted for. She'd got me to see that she was going to use me as her baby. And then she had the role of mother, which she could take, because she could be either mother or baby, but she couldn't be Piggle. And it was partly because I had that framework in my mind that I was able to see that here was a way of giving her the role of mother. And there's lots of material for it. So, this went on, and the sickness and various things, and there was such relief now from the tension that she took the two animals, the two big animals, and put them between us with a trough with food. So now there was, between her and me, was a representative of us, the two animals eating. And she got the relief of being able to use the symbol of that. And we were now, from now onwards, really practicing. So that they were eating their food. I I went over that again with another series about there's the Winnicott baby, comes from the piggles inside, born out to the piggle, very greedy, very hungry, very fond of the piggle, eating the piggle's feet and hands. And I stupidly said breasts, which didn't mean anything. If I'd only said yams, it would have been all right, but you see, I didn't know the language. However, it didn't matter much. I was thinking over all the part objects, you know, that you could get. Then she walked to the other end of the room, quite different sort of feeling about it. Went to the mother's chair, and then she went to the chair the father had sat in the first year. And I said, are you the mummy or the daddy? And she said, I'm the daddy and the mummy too. And then she watched these animals feeding. And then she went to her father in the waiting room. And there was a sort of intermediate period here, which we have to just allow for. I heard her say to the father, I'm the mummy. And they had a lot of talk in there. And eventually she came back with her father. And she brought her coat. Going to go soon. So there was just a thing, she wasn't really anxious, she was, I don't think, she was just not quite sure whether she'd have finished or whether we'd start on a new theme. Didn't know what was going to happen, really. Then she, with the father there, she started playing a little bit, very tentatively, and I could now see where the anxiety was. Because the anxiety was about meeting this very greedy baby. And so she said, can I have one toy? So I said, Winnicott, the very greedy baby, wants all the toys. Just one. And eventually she took one toy out to her father in the waiting room, and I heard her say, baby wants all the toys. Then she went and brought the toy back. And seemed very pleased that I was still sitting on the floor being very greedy. Now the Winnicott baby has all the toys. I'll go to Daddy. I said, you're afraid of the greedy Winnicott baby, the baby that I now saw that she was anxious about having let me take this role in the, and she was the mother, and she's going to have her yams eaten. That's it. So we might have finished, but there's still a bit more to come, and I want to tell you about. She went to her father, tried to shut the door. Heard the father working overtime in the waiting room, trying to entertain her. Because he didn't know what was going on, poor man. So now I said, right, well, I didn't know what would happen. And I said, the time wasn't quite up, and I thought I would like a bit more chance. And I said, come in, both together. So he came in, and then he sat in the father chair that he sat in the first instance. And then she knew exactly what it was she wanted. She was all quite simple. And she didn't know what she wanted, and she didn't know that she would have it, and so on. But suddenly she'd been maneuvering for it. So he got in the chair there, and she didn't say it. She sat on his lap. She said to her father, I'm shy. And after a while, she showed her father the Winnicott baby, the monster that she'd given birth to. And she was shy about this baby. After all, she had usurped the mother's place, hadn't she? And that's the food that animals eat. And then she was performing acrobatics on her father's lap. And then she started being born between his legs, curling up like this, going down and coming out between his legs on the floor. I'm a baby too. She came out head first onto the floor between the father's legs. I said, I want a baby, I want a baby, I want all the toys. You see, it was all... Because she could be a mother or a baby. And I was her baby. That's her as the mother. And she was the baby that was born, and I was the piggle, the thing she couldn't be. My father must have thought us completely mad, which You've got all the toys, she said. Yes, but I want to be the only baby. I don't want there to be any more babies. So she got on her father's lap and she was born again. I'm a baby too, I'm the baby too. And she went on. I said, I want to be the only baby. We went on like this, I won't bore you with it, but it was supposed to time. And then I said to her, shall I be cross? She said, yes. So I made a very big noise and I knocked over all the toys, and that meant I was sick, you see, because of the button. I hit my knees and I said, I want to be the only baby, and I was very, very angry. Made a terrific row. She was very pleased, and she sat on her father's lap looking over there, rather frightened. You could say, how far do you participate in playing in a child analysis? And it's a very interesting argument and to discuss, because you can say, you can easily say that I participated too well. But I don't find that with children, and I know there are some diagnoses, and what you think, but there are some diagnoses where you have to be very careful not to participate. But in a child analysis of this kind, I participate. When I know my role, I participate.
Would you call this, if we were asked, because there's some judges here who mentioned interpretation earlier, we would say that this is an unverbal interpretation.
I think I feel as if she's almost made the interpretation. She's brought the material showing me that she's the mother or the baby, and I've got to be herself. And we're going to bring it alive. Yes, it's an interpretation in terms of bringing the meaning of it, making it dynamic.
Yeah, but it was not said in words.
Not said in words, no.
Would that be considered an interpretation?
What do you think? I feel myself that I want to work on the principle that interpretation is something that you say when no, I don't want to say this. I was going to say, when you have boiled up to make an interpretation, you need to make it because the material is there for you.
It's the difference, partly, that when you participate as you do, you're really, in a sense, participating in the child's primary process thinking.
Yes.
Which is quite different from an interpretation of which.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying for or against, but this is what it seems to me that you're doing. That you are portraying for her primary process thinking as on the symbolic level.
Yes, this reminds me too of something else from last hour I want to say. If you notice how, with children, this is self-named, how she said, the cot. Where did the baby come from? The cot. That's the verbal. At the same time, as she said that, she took up a thing and went like this. I'm remembering a child that I've often described who came to the point where a stealing child, where I said, and you steal, do you steal? I think she was too young and I said, pinch. And so she did two things at once. She said no. But while she was doing that, she took a piece of paper and drew a picture. And suddenly the clouds had come away, which turned out to be the flowers of the mother and the apple tree and the two apples. And she drew the apple tree, and she got through to the mother. And so when she said, I don't pinch, she was right, because the two processes were two quite separate things, yes or no and all that. But at the same time, the child will the primary presence thing and a verbalized thing. Is that so?
That's a beautiful illustration of the fact that a 2.5-year-old child has not yet reached the level of really internalized fantasies in the same sense as a child of 4 or 5. So that what you're doing, in a way, is showing her the results of her instinctual wishes in an external way, in an open system, so to speak.
Well, then, do you feel that there are cases like this one where participation, where you participate, there's two things. You participate because if you don't, the thing goes dead. The other thing is participating has its dangers because I can enjoy myself too much and find that we're playing my game instead of hers. Please.
It strikes me that this is really not different from using a substitute object, which you are in this instance. But I don't think you'd have any question if you said, oh, the teddy wants to be the only baby, and the teddy is very angry and is destroying the toys because the teddy wants to be the only baby. That's the same communication. Only you just don't happen to be playing, but it's the same kind of communication. It's a relative individual you're talking of, and the child knows, and you know that you're talking about the child.
Well, then I think I want to say that as time went on, this became the sort of thing much more. At the beginning, it had to be in terms of lean, sheen, and I can hardly convey to you how what a relief it was when we began to be able to use even the two animals eating there instead of us eating each other, you know? Just suddenly we were playing instead of having a dream and living in a dream. And so this is the sort of So, nearly finished all that because we then went on about. I don't think the rest adds to this that are, except that she did an interesting thing from my point of view. After she'd exhausted, I thought, her father, by using him to be born out of. By the way, he had been rather more naturally a good mother figure to her when she was tiny. The mother, obviously, overall is a mother, but the fact is that this father had been a very important maternal figure. But after being born out of twin estates like this, you know, I don't know how babies know this. I've had some experience of little children coming and being born. But the thing is that she then decided to be born out of the top of his head, like Athene out of the head of Zeus. And so she climbed out and kept on coming out of the top of his head. Which, you can speculate about that. I was saying, in a sense, you can say that she was then talking about being conceived of. But at the same time, I couldn't help noting that at that time, her rival, if the father was going to be the mother, her rival was the book he was writing, which is now published, which is now quite famous. But at that time, he was, and they were talking about a great deal of them, and in a sense, she was a rival to the book. Only that's me using my imagination. I've never had a child, I know it happens, but I've never actually had a child looking as if he'd been reading the Graves' Penguin on Greek myths. Just like that, being born out of the head.
Couldn't she have been fully armed? Was there a jealousy?
Could she have been
born fully armed from the head of Zeus? So that there was a rivalry with father's, not only his intellectual power, but his feelings.
I mean, the myth is that Zeus was jealous of the creativity of women. Your father's producing a book. My father has the power, not only the intellectual power of the book, but he also has the feelings. And the feeling is born fully armed when they get to Zeus.
Yes, that's important. With her, this wasn't the theme, was it? So I introduced the theme, I spoiled the theme a bit by having this bit of imagination, because at the moment she's got a limited thing she's doing, which is to find a way of being the mother and the baby, which she can be, and letting me be the very dangerous Piggle, who's now beginning, after this, to find her identity with respect to.
Well, here's some more methods for discussion I brought up. The question would arise in terms of the method you mentioned earlier. I would feel that you went straight to the heart of the matter in terms of consent, in terms of standards, in terms of, without going more or less first through some of the defenses.
Yes, I felt, I don't know what you feel about it, but I felt this wasn't the case. I do have many cases that where you see people and you wait around and you talk to them and you get their cooperation and all that before you start in on things. And then you gradually get down to things and they take time. But I didn't feel this was one of those cases. I felt here I had to deliver the goods on the first day and the second. After that I could leave it. The process is set up and we can carry on and we can waste time and I can go to sleep or something. But the thing is that I didn't feel I could wait and say, well, look, she's telling me about babies and about sexual intercourse and all that sort of thing, but I must wait for a long time. I felt rather like Mrs. Nine did on that day when that child came and he took 2 pieces of wood and broke them like that, and she said, Mommy and Daddy, whatever she went on to say, I don't know. Because she'd been criticized for doing that, but the case was so urgent that if she didn't do that, the case, she was going to lose, she wouldn't get it anyway.
But I'm trying to get to certain trouble and me problem, I agree with it. Because it was said earlier that circumstances don't justify the taking of principles.
Yes. But I don't feel
what can we say?
We must have a rule here which allows it to alter according to the diagnosis of the child or patient. Because and the age. There are many babies in children. I mean, say, I remember something, an anecdotal, we've all got hundreds of, I mean, we've got about 20,000 cases between us here, but very, very briefly, I lost a case of a child sent me long before I was ready to have it, at 13, schizophrenic. And when she came back to me at 20, I said, what could I have done at 13 that would have kept you? She said, I came into your room and in the first week there, you mentioned the word breast. Well, if anybody mentioned the word breast to me when I'm 13, I'd already had an orgasm. The whole thing was getting absolutely out of control, and I went away as quick as I could. But she said, and I said, well, what could I have done? She said, well, I have one thing I was a specialist in, which is the cinema. We could have gone to cinema together. And we could have talked about film stars, and I could have told you who women are born, who they married, and whatever happened. We could have talked about that. And for several months. And you could have done the treatment then, if you'd done that, but you'd have to sit down there and talk about breasts. And it's quite right, you know, the material wasn't wrong. It was that she was, I'd forgotten what it does to a 13-year-old like that when you mention the word breast.
I wanted to be clear that Dr. Ramzy and I agree about what the comment about circumstances and principles related to them. It depends on what principle you're talking about. If the principle you're talking about is the speed of an interpretation, obviously that varies with circumstances, patient, etc., etc. If you're talking about you're introducing your material, I don't see why circumstances encourage you to do that.
Can I raise a point here? I wonder whether you could look back now and see the tension that you had and your ability to deliver the goods linked with the whole way in which you're bringing the problem of pregnancy and the delivery. Because I couldn't quite understand how you suddenly gave birth to that idea, which for you was the crucial interpretation. And then later on, when she played around with her father's head, it seems as if in some way, at that point, you'd both been relieved of the pain and the tension and could now play. Because somehow in this, you had got through, let me say, to the heart of the matter, to the birth. So the tension beforehand was a bit like the tension of, having an idea that had to be born for you to understand each other. So that your hurry was, the hurry in a sense of urgency.
Yes.
She might have felt always.
Yes, can we leave out my own anxieties? Because I don't easily get hurt. I'm experienced now. I'm practically even fail. I don't easily get pushed because there's evidence here that I was anxious. If we leave that out, then I think the urgency should be giving you a picture of the child's urgency. It was very urgent. We couldn't play. We weren't playing. I didn't feel we were playing. There was a moment when she seemed to be able to play. And sometimes we lost it again. And then we had to come back to it. But because I always say psychotherapy is done in the overlap of two people's play areas. And that's the only place where we can do psychotherapy. And if I can't play, well, I don't do psychotherapy. And if the patient can't play, then we've got to do something else, which is to enable them to play. Because if we can't play, we can't overlap our play areas, and it's only in that little bit that we can communicate. And I think that there wasn't, at the beginning, I was really trying to enable her to, I don't know how to put it, I was trying to give her the idea, I don't know in those terms what I was trying to do, but I was trying to get out of the fact that we couldn't play together, we had to work. I don't know how to carry on there. That was it.
One question. Was there any evidence of this child having run into difficulties around sleep in the period following the baby?
No, that wasn't so, but she did like to do aggressive things she did like to be the baby and get into do baby things and all that sort of thing, but it didn't turn into.
I don't like to be anecdotal, but I have an adult patient with a very severe disturbance following the birth of a young stage, with a traumatic screen memory of having been to visit her mother, having been carrying a balloon in her hand, and the balloon, which was a hydrogen-filled one, having flown out of her hand up into the air, which has recently in the adult analysis come up as a condensation around the birth of the baby, the mother, and the whole of her anal control. And it's how there were certain similarities to this child in the seriousness of this patient's character structure, which was also making me doubt. You're saying that this child would have been well anyway.
Yes.
Because this kind of traumatic response can be pretty devastating in the overlap around bowel control, theories of birth, and the institution of very primitive excessive defenses.
Yes.
And the fact that a child couldn't play
Yes.
is very much a matter of concern.
Yes, well, I think that the recovery, spontaneous recovery at home, will have to make some very serious
That's a lot
mistakes.
serious.
Yes, respectfully. But should I don't know when you want to before, because the commute's not. Yes, I understand if somebody has to go, but can I say just one or two things to make it slightly more interesting with the yeah, it's better really if somebody wants to say something. I'd rather you speak than me.
Well, I have just one
Yes.
direct participation with the child.
Yes.
Right. I wonder if one could imagine another child under the same circumstances, perhaps getting extremely frightened by this